This morning, I woke up to 67 missed calls, all from numbers I hadn't saved, but I didn't need to. I knew exactly who they were. It's been 12 years since the day my family left me in the mountains. On purpose. They thought it was funny. Let's see if she can get out of here on her own. My sister Madison had giggled. I remember the way her voice echoed off the trees. Like it was a game. It was supposed to be a family healing retreat. Mom's idea. Something about getting back to nature, putting differences behind us, learning to work together again. What it actually was? 6 people dragging one girl they hated up the side of a mountain and deciding they were better off without her. Let me rewind. I was 17, living at home because, frankly, I had nowhere else to go. Dad, stepmom, my 2 stepbrothers, my sister Madison, and me. Lily, the leftover. The charity case from Dad's first marriage. The mistake. They said it in 1,000 ways that didn't need words. Only my name was left off the Christmas stocking lineup. Only my birthday was forgotten 3 years in a row. Only I got handed a broom while the others played video games after dinner. The worst part? I thought if I tried hard enough, they'd eventually love me, or at least tolerate me. So when stepmom Deborah suggested the trip, I went. Even packed extra socks. Even hoped. We drove 8 hours to the middle of nowhere. Some forest in the Rockies, I don't even remember the name. They kept making jokes the whole time. Hope Lily doesn't get eaten by a bear. Better tie a rope to her ankle. Watch her wander off and get lost. I laughed too. I always did. I thought if I didn't laugh, they'd see how much it hurt. That third morning, we set out on a long hike up a ridge trail. It was steep, rocky, barely a path. I was slower than the others, carrying the pack no one else wanted. Dad kept barking, "Keep up or go back." Madison rolled her eyes every time I tripped. Even the dog seemed to side-eye me. Then it happened. We reached a narrow fork in the trail near the ridge summit, a little clearing with a view of the valley below. They said we'd take a break. Everyone dropped their bags, took selfies, guzzled water. I remember standing a few feet away, looking at the landscape, trying to memorize it, because even then, something in my gut knew I'd need to. Then I heard it. The crunch of footsteps behind me. The quiet giggle. Madison's voice, soft but cruel. Let's see if she can get out of here on her own. I turned. No one was there. The ridge was empty. Their bags? Gone. The dog? Gone. My family? Gone. I called out, "Dad?" No answer. I ran back down the trail. Nothing. I waited 15 minutes, thinking maybe it was a joke. Then 30. Then an hour. It wasn't a joke. I was alone. 17. No phone. They'd made us disconnect. No map. They said I didn't need one. Just a granola bar and a half-full water bottle in my borrowed backpack. Something broke in me that day. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quietly, like a final click of a lock behind a door that wouldn't open again. I didn't cry. Not then. I started walking. I remembered a ranger station we passed on the way up. Rough guess. Maybe 8 miles back? I followed the sun, used the slope of the mountains, guessed my way through forks in the trail. I walked for hours. When I stumbled into the ranger station just before sunset, I looked like any other dirty hiker. No one knew the difference. I told them I got separated from my group. They offered to call them. I told them not to. That night, I slept on a cot with a scratchy blanket and a full belly. And made a decision. I would never go back. The only way to escape their version of me was to disappear completely. No tearful goodbyes. No final confrontation. Just silence. It would take years before I stopped listening for their voices. Before I stopped expecting to see them around corners, in parking lots, in my dreams. But that morning, 12 years later, when I saw the 67 missed calls, I didn't panic. I smiled. Because I knew the chapter they thought they closed was about to reopen, but this time I was the one holding the pen. They never came back for me. I waited 2 full days after that first night at the ranger station. The rangers filed a lost person report, but no one reported me missing. No panicked family. No calls to the station. Not even a damn flyer. The ranger, her name was Holly, offered to take me into town, said I could wait there for my family to contact me. I just nodded, but I already knew they wouldn't, because what they did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a miscommunication. It was abandonment, wrapped in sarcasm, sealed with laughter. So I lied, told Holly I was 18, said I'd just moved out and had a fight with my folks. Didn't want them called. Didn't want to go back. She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Maybe she saw the truth hiding in my eyes. Maybe she'd seen it before. By the third day, I was on a Greyhound bus heading west. I didn't pick a destination based on logic or connection. I picked the name that sounded the farthest from anything familiar. Missoula, Montana. I didn't know a soul there. Didn't have a plan. But I had silence. And silence was better than the screaming at home. The first few months were a blur of corners and couches. I slept in shelters. Then in a church basement where the custodian let me stay if I scrubbed floors. A part-time job at a bakery came next. Then a mattress on the floor of a shared studio apartment with 2 girls who didn't ask questions. I changed my last name on everything I could. Applied for a replacement ID using my birth certificate. The only thing I'd taken with me in my bag by accident. It wasn't much, but it was something. You learn fast when you're out on your own. Learn to read people's tone before their words. Learn which corners of town are safe after dark. Learn how to make a single loaf of bread stretch 4 days. And you learn to let go of the idea of rescue. No one's coming. Not for you. Not ever. And maybe that's what saves you. I enrolled in GED classes 6 months after I landed in Missoula. I didn't tell anyone my real age. I didn't need to. I looked older than I was. Turns out sleeping rough, scrubbing toilets, and never smiling adds a few years to your face. The instructor's name was Dana. She was the first adult who looked me in the eye like I was capable, not broken. "You're quick," she said once after I corrected a math equation. I almost cried right there. Not because of the compliment, but because no one had ever called me quick before. Just slow, dumb, deadweight, drama queen. By the time I turned 18, really turned 18, I had my GED, a full-time bakery job, and a single goal: don't go back. There were moments I slipped. Nights when I scrolled Facebook on library computers searching for Madison's profile. She'd gone to college, somewhere back east. Blonde hair, perfect smile, hundreds of likes. Once I found a post, "Miss you, sis," with a picture of the 2 of us as kids. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I realized it was the year after they left me behind. She hadn't missed me. She missed the idea of the girl she used to bully. She missed the foil, the family joke. So I stopped checking and started living. At 20, I moved to Boise for a culinary program I'd applied to on a whim. It wasn't Le Cordon Bleu. It was a 2-year certificate at a community college. But it was mine. Dana had helped me with the essay. "Tell them the truth," she'd said. "Not the facts. The truth, so I did. I wrote about being left behind, not for sympathy, for clarity. Because the truth was, getting lost saved me. Not all at once. Not in some shiny, inspirational Instagram post way, but piece by piece, like planting a garden in rubble. I rented a small studio above an auto shop. The ceiling leaked when it rained. The radiator clanged at 3 a.m., but it was quiet. And the food I cooked didn't come with insults. And the bed didn't come with conditions. And that was enough. Until this morning. 67 missed calls. 12 years. No contact. No apology. Not even a message. Until now. The first call came at 2:13 a.m. By the time I woke up, there were 66 more. I didn't recognize the number, but something in me knew. I opened my window, let the morning air hit my face, and didn't call back. Instead, I poured a cup of coffee and sat down at the small table where I'd planned my entire adult life. On that same table now, my phone and the ghosts of a past I never invited back. Whatever storm was coming, I was ready to face it. Because I wasn't that girl on the ridge anymore. And this time, I wasn't going to walk away. I was going to face them. And I was going to make damn sure they remembered exactly who they left behind. By the time I left for work that morning, the calls had stopped, but the texts had started. Madison. Lily? Please call me back. It's important. Dad. Still saved in my phone under biological source. Need to talk. Urgent. Unknown. Hey, it's Evan. Can we talk? Evan, one of my stepbrothers. I hadn't thought about him in years. Didn't even know he had my number. I deleted the first few. But the last one, I hesitated. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted an answer to a question I stopped asking out loud a long time ago. Why did you do it? But I didn't text back. Not yet. Instead, I called Dana. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, kiddo, everything okay? I think they found me, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time in years. There was a long pause. Then, you don't owe them anything, Lily. I know, I said, but I didn't feel it. Not yet. That night, after closing at the cafe, I poured a glass of cheap wine and opened the texts again. There were now 27. Madison, we just want to talk. We didn't know it would go that far. Dad, I'm sick. We should talk before it's too late. Evan, look, I didn't know they left you, I swear. I thought you just wandered off and ran away. I stared at that one for a long time. Not because I believed him, but because it confirmed what I'd been waiting to hear. They were rewriting the story. Again. In their version, I wasn't abandoned. I was emotional. Dramatic. Difficult. The kind of girl who walked away from her family and never looked back for no good reason. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out to control the narrative, to make sure the person they'd thrown away didn't grow teeth. Too late. I finally responded. Not to Dad, not to Madison, to Evan. I didn't even say hello. Me. What do you want? The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Evan. Look, I know you hate us. I get it. I do. But Dad's not doing well. He's got late-stage kidney failure. He's been asking about you. Me. So ask him what I smelled like when you left me on that ridge. It took him 5 minutes to reply. Evan. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. We came back. You were gone. I read that 3 times, then threw my phone across the room. It hit the couch and bounced onto the floor. I didn't cry. I just laughed. That ugly kind of laugh where it's not even sound anymore. Just breath. Because in their world, it was all just a funny misunderstanding. A family prank. No big deal. 12 years later, and still, no one admitted what really happened. Not even now. 2 days passed. I thought maybe it was over. But then I got a call. Not from them. From Caitlin, my old childhood neighbor. The one who used to share sidewalk chalk and Capri Suns with me before middle school changed everything. She found me on LinkedIn of all places, said she saw something on Facebook. Your sister posted an old photo of you guys hiking, she said. Caption said, she was always a little wild. We miss her. Come home, Lils. My blood went cold. They're spinning it, I whispered. Of course they are, she said. You think they're gonna admit what they did? Caitlin didn't push me. She just said, if you ever need backup, I'm here. That night, I Googled them. Everything. Found Madison's Instagram first. Perfect photos, happy marriage, a golden retriever, and a bio that read, proud sister, daughter, wife, mental health advocate. The irony almost knocked the wind out of me. Dad's name popped up in local news. Family hardware staple closing after 30 years. The article said business had slowed after the new home improvement store opened nearby. Said they were struggling. So that's why you're reaching out now, I thought. You're drowning and I look like a life raft. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Still, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Madison's voice in my head. Let's see if she can get out on her own. She hadn't just abandoned me. She'd bet against me. And now that I'd won, they wanted to pretend it never happened. Well, it did. And I wasn't the one who was lost anymore. It was Evan who convinced me to meet. Not because I trusted him, but because he wasn't Madison, and he wasn't my father. He offered to meet in public, neutral ground, a diner off the highway between Boise and what used to be home. Someplace called Mel's that looked like it hadn't changed since 1982. I agreed on one condition. 1 hour. No surprises. No other family. He texted back. Scout's honor. Funny, coming from someone who left his sister in the woods. The day of the meeting, I sat in my car for 20 minutes before going in. Hands on the wheel, keys in the ignition, heart pounding. I wasn't scared. I was angry. But anger, when it runs deep enough, wears the same clothes as fear. When I finally stepped inside, he was already at a booth, fidgeting with the napkin dispenser. He looked older, hair thinning, a little rounder around the face, but mostly he just looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Lily. He stood up like he was about to hug me. I held up a hand. He got the message. I slid into the booth opposite him, keeping my jacket on. The server came by. I ordered coffee. He asked for the same. Then silence. He tried to smile. You look good. Really, like, good. I didn't respond. He sighed. Okay, I deserve that. I stirred my coffee, waited. He shifted in his seat. I'm not here to guilt you. I just want to explain. You've had 12 years, I said, voice flat. I know. Look, when it happened, I thought it was just a prank. A bad one. I swear I raised an eyebrow. You thought ditching a minor in the mountains was a prank? He looked down. I thought we were coming back. I didn't say anything. He kept going. But then, when we got to the car, Dad just said, she'll figure it out. Like it wasn't even a big deal. Madison laughed. Mom looked scared, but she didn't say anything. And I didn't either. I'm sorry. There it was. The truth. Not in the apology, but in the way he said we got to the car. They'd left. Together. They hadn't lost me. They'd chosen to leave me. He wasn't lying to rewrite history. He was lying to feel better about it. Do you know what I had with me? I asked. He looked confused. I had one granola bar. No phone, no wallet, no map. You all knew that. Dad said you were old enough. I cut him off. I was 17. He didn't answer. The silence between us grew until it started to hum. Then he said it. The real reason he was there. Dad's dying. I nodded once. He's asking for you. I looked out the window. Why now? Evan sighed. Because the store went under. The house is gone. And he says he just wants to make things right before it's too late. Make things right, I echoed. Evan leaned in. Look, I'm not here for money. Neither is he. He's messed up. But maybe he's trying. Maybe he's scared. And you? He shrugged. I don't know. I just kept thinking about you. How you were the only one who ever called out his crap. How maybe we were all just too scared to do the same. That one stung. Because it was true. I had been the first to break the silence. And they had punished me for it. Evan reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, slid it across the table. What's this? I asked. He wrote it. For you. I stared at it but didn't touch it. You don't have to read it, Evan said softly. Just take it if you want. I did, eventually. He stood, left money for the coffees, paused before walking out. I was wrong too, Lily, he said. I could have stopped it. I didn't, and I'll live with that. He left. I sat there for a long time, the folded paper heavy in my coat pocket, not sure what I was more afraid of, what it said, or what it didn't. That night I didn't sleep. I laid the note on my kitchen counter, paced around it like it might bite. Eventually, I opened it. 5 lines, scrawled in Dad's messy handwriting. I was wrong. You didn't deserve it. I thought I was making you tougher. I see now I broke something. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know. I remember. That last word hit me like a sucker punch. He remembered. He remembered the ridge, the heat, the laughter, the look on my face when I realized they were gone. He remembered everything. He just hadn't cared. Not then. Now, maybe he did. But the thing about forgiveness, it's not a key anyone else can turn. I hadn't been back in 12 years. Not for holidays, not for funerals, not for anything. But a week after meeting Evan, I packed a small bag, filled my tank, and pointed my car toward the town I swore I'd never return to. Not because I forgave them, not because I owed them, but because I needed to look them in the eye. One last time. And say out loud what I had whispered to myself for over a decade. You don't get to pretend it didn't happen. The drive was quieter than I remembered. Maybe because I wasn't the same girl who had once stared out that car window, trying to disappear into the trees. I arrived just before dusk. Evan had arranged for us to meet at the hospice where Dad was staying. I half expected the building to collapse the moment I stepped inside. It didn't. The air smelled like antiseptic and resignation. A nurse greeted me and gestured toward a quiet hallway. I'll let him know you're here, she said. I stood there, frozen under the fluorescent lights, wondering for a moment if I'd made a mistake. But then I remembered the note. Those 5 lines. The cowardice of a man who waited until death to say he was sorry. And I walked in. He looked smaller than I remembered. Paler. Like life had already started leaving him one cell at a time. When he saw me, his mouth twitched like he was going to smile. But he didn't. Lily, he said. One word, raspy, like gravel being scraped across asphalt. I didn't sit down, didn't say hello, just stood at the edge of the room like I was inspecting damage. He cleared his throat. You came. You asked. A pause. Then, I didn't think you would. You didn't think I'd survive being left on a mountain either. That one landed. He looked away. I was angry, he muttered. Thought you were weak. And so you left me behind? I asked. To toughen me up? No, he said, voice low. To see if you'd break. I blinked. That was the closest thing to truth I'd ever heard him say. You wanted me to fail, I whispered. He didn't deny it. He just closed his eyes. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. I read your note, I said. He looked back at me, eyes wet. Then you know I regret it. I don't care, I said. Regret isn't enough, not after 12 years of silence. He nodded slowly. Fair. There it was again. That same quiet honesty. And for a second, I didn't hate him. I pitied him. A man who thought power came from cruelty. A man who mistook fear for respect. A man who didn't understand love, so he tried to conquer it instead. I'm not here to forgive you, I said. He didn't flinch. I'm here so that when you die, you don't get to imagine I turned out broken. You don't get to leave this world thinking you won. He looked up at me, something flickering in his eyes. Grief, maybe. Or shame. What did you do with your life? He asked, voice barely a breath. I built one, I said. Without you. Without Madison. Without any of it. He nodded. I'm glad, he said. For a second, I believed him. Outside, I found Evan waiting by the parking lot. He didn't say anything, just handed me a folded piece of paper. "Madison wrote you something too," he said. I stared at it, then back at him. "She's always been good at rewriting stories," I said. "Tell her I'm not reading it." He sighed. "She's not the same person, Lily." "Neither am I," I said. "But she made me who I am." "And what's that?" I smiled. "Free?" Before I left town, I took a detour, drove up to the old trailhead, the one that led to the ridge where they left me. I sat on a bench near the start of the path, just as the sun began to drop behind the trees. For a moment, I imagined her. That 17-year-old girl in beat-up sneakers, a backpack too heavy, heart too hopeful. I wanted to reach into that memory, hold her by the shoulders, and tell her something she could never believe at the time. "You're not going to disappear. You're going to rebuild. You're going to become someone they can't even look in the eye without flinching. And that will be enough." I didn't hike the trail. I didn't need to. Because I already knew how it ended. I got home the next morning just before sunrise. Boise was still asleep. The streets were quiet. My apartment smelled like coffee grounds and the lavender candle I forgot to blow out. And my phone? It was lit up again. 67 missed calls. Same as before. This time, I didn't bother opening them. I just looked at the number, then turned the phone off. It felt poetic somehow, like the universe had decided to bookmark the moment. 12 years later, the loop had closed. And I had the pen now. The next few weeks, I went back to my life. Back to the bakery. Back to my apartment. Back to the life I'd built with bare hands and burnt fingertips. No speeches, no social media tell-all. No dramatic confrontations in hospital rooms or graveyards. Just ordinary, quiet, unstoppable living. That's the thing no one tells you about survival. It doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes it looks like folding laundry while listening to a podcast. Sometimes it looks like renewing your lease. Sometimes it looks like helping the new girl at work learn the register, even when her hands shake like yours once did. And sometimes it looks like nothing at all, which is how you know it's healing. A month after I got back, I received a letter. No return address. Just my name on the front in careful handwriting. I knew who it was from before I opened it. Madison. Inside, 2 pages. Both sides. She said she was sorry. Said she'd spent years pretending it was a joke, because the alternative, that she was cruel, was too much to face. Said she was in therapy now. Said she finally told her husband the truth. At the bottom of the last page, she wrote, "You're stronger than I ever was. And I'm sorry it took losing you to realize that." I folded the letter once and placed it in a drawer I rarely opened. Didn't throw it away. Didn't reread it either. It wasn't for closure. It was just proof that I wasn't crazy. That what happened really happened. And that, in their own warped, delayed way, they remembered too. Weeks passed. Then months. Dad died in early spring. Evan texted me the morning it happened. I saw the preview on my phone. Didn't open it. Deleted it instead. I didn't go to the funeral. Not out of spite. Not out of anger. I just didn't belong there anymore. I wasn't the daughter they lost. I wasn't the sister they laughed at. I wasn't the girl they left behind. I was someone else entirely. And funerals are for the people who need to say goodbye. I said goodbye a long time ago. I still visit the mountains sometimes. Different ones. Not to chase ghosts, but to make new memories. A few months ago, I went on a solo hike. Long trail. High elevation. I stood at the summit, wind in my face, and thought, I made it out. Not just out of the woods. Out of the story they wrote for me. Out of the cage they called home. And I didn't just survive. I became. People ask me now if I ever reconnected with my family. And I always say the same thing. They found me. But they didn't recognize who I'd become. That's the thing about people who only know how to break others. They never expect them to rebuild. Especially not stronger. Especially not taller. Especially not better. Some nights I still think about the ridge, about that version of me who stood in the trees trying to convince herself they'd come back. And if I could speak to her now, I'd say, don't wait for them. They'll never be who you need them to be. But you'll become exactly who you're meant to be. Because the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's peace. It's freedom. It's walking into a life so good, so full, so you, that the people who tried to bury you start digging through their own regrets and realize you were the one they should have followed. The story ends here. Not with a dramatic return. Not with forgiveness. Not with rage. But with a girl who found her way out of the woods and never looked back. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not go home, but build one instead. My name is Kelly Morgan, and for most of my adult life, I believed that loyalty, hard work, and sacrifice would eventually be rewarded. That if you gave everything to your family, they'd always have your back. I believed that, until the Friday afternoon I found out my parents had secretly made my younger brother CEO of the company I practically built from scratch. But let's rewind. Before the betrayal, before the fallout, before the silence between us turned into a war, I was proud, fiercely proud, of what we'd created, of what I had created. I was 29 when I took over operations at Morgan & Company. Design Build, our family-owned construction and renovation business. My parents, George and Ellen Morgan, had founded it together out of a 2-car garage when I was still in middle school. Back then, it was just small kitchen remodels and patio jobs. But I watched my dad carry drywall with blisters on his hands, and my mom chased down payments from clients while managing invoices in an old Excel file that crashed every time you sneezed. By the time I graduated with my degree in architecture and business, they were still stuck in the old ways. No project management system, no CRM. Contracts were still printed and signed with pen. It was charming, but it wasn't scalable. So I came home and went to work. Not for a paycheck, but because I believed in their dream. I made it mine. Within 2 years, I'd implemented streamlined workflows, negotiated contracts that tripled our revenue, and brought in clients with names my dad used to read about in trade magazines. By 33, I was managing all major accounts, overseeing staff and running the entire company, on paper and in practice. And then there was Landon, my younger brother by 3 years. Smart? Yes. Driven? When he wanted to be. But while I was in the office at 7 a.m., Landon was still finding himself. He traveled, tried tech startups, failed twice, and spent a year in Thailand meditating and redefining his professional identity. I didn't resent that. Not at first. We were just different people. But things started shifting 2 years ago when Landon returned home and, suddenly, wanted in on the family business. My parents welcomed him back with open arms. My dad gave him an executive strategy consultant title. He sat in on meetings but didn't take notes, offered visionary insight but couldn't explain a spreadsheet. Meanwhile, I stayed late to fix his mistakes, rebuild broken client trust, and keep the machine moving. Still, I told myself, this is family. Be patient. I was loyal. To a fault. Until that Friday. We had just wrapped the final design presentation for Hawthorne Properties, our biggest client to date. A $5 million contract was in the pipeline, and they were ready to move forward. After the meeting, I went into the back office to print some documents and found an envelope sitting on my chair. It wasn't addressed. Just my name written in my dad's familiar handwriting. Inside was a copy of a resolution. Landon Morgan appointed CEO of Morgan & Company, effective immediately. No discussion. No explanation. No conversation. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there with this icy, hollow feeling rising through my chest. My hands went numb. I reread the paper, convinced it had to be a draft, a mistake, a joke. But it wasn't. My name appeared nowhere. I walked out of the office, past our design board, past my frame certifications, and into the conference room, where Landon was joking with one of our junior architects like it was just another day. My parents? Nowhere to be found. So I made a decision right then. If they wanted Landon to run the company, he could. That night, I logged in from home, backed up my personal files, deleted every system shortcut and internal process guide I'd built over the years from the shared drive. Files only I had access to. I didn't destroy anything. I just removed my contribution. What remained was theirs to manage. Or not. The following Monday, I didn't show up for work. And I didn't answer my phone when my dad called 5 days later, his voice tight with panic. "Kelly, we need to talk. Hawthorne's pulling out. They said you're not on the project anymore and they're not comfortable moving forward." I texted him back one sentence. "Ask your golden boy. He's in charge now, right?" What followed would change the future of our family forever. When I sent that text, "Ask your golden boy. He's in charge now, right?" I didn't expect a reply. And for the next 48 hours, I didn't get one. The silence was deafening. It felt like the kind that comes not from confusion, but from scrambling. I imagined my father pacing his office, Landon fumbling through contracts he never read, my mother pretending nothing was wrong while offering someone tea. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. Mostly I felt tired. It had been exactly 8 days since I'd walked out of Morgan and Company, and in that time I had done something I hadn't done in over a decade. Nothing. No early meetings, no project calls, no client emails. Just long walks, uninterrupted meals, and staring at my phone waiting for a call that never came. Until now. On Wednesday morning, my mother's name lit up my screen. "Sweetheart," she said immediately, her voice syrupy. "You've made your point. We really need to talk about this professionally. Can you come to dinner Sunday? Just the 4 of us." I paused. Dinner. Like this was just a minor disagreement over Thanksgiving plans and not a betrayal that upended my career. But I agreed, because I needed to look them in the eyes and see if they even understood what they'd done. Sunday came, and I pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly 6 p.m. The porch light was on, and inside I could already hear my dad's booming laugh and the clinking of wine glasses. I stood at the front door for a few seconds longer than I needed to, steadying my breath. Landon opened the door. "Hey, Kel," he said like nothing had happened. Like we weren't on opposite sides of a war no one acknowledged yet. I walked past him without responding. The dining table was already set. Mom was in her usual apron, pulling something out of the oven. Dad sat at the head of the table, flipping through a leather-bound notebook. His strategy notes, I assumed. I sat down without a word. "So," my dad said after some obligatory small talk, "let's talk about how we move forward. We've had a rough couple of days with Hawthorne, but I think we can salvage it. Landon's putting together a revised proposal and—" I held up my hand. "I'm not here to fix things," I said calmly. "I'm here to ask a simple question. Why?" He blinked. "Why what?" "Why did you name Landon CEO behind my back?" I asked, staring directly at him. No discussion. No notice. After everything I've done for the company. The room fell silent. My mother busied herself pouring wine, avoiding eye contact. My father sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Kelly, you've always been the backbone of the business. No one denies that. But you're operational. Landon is a visionary. He has ideas. Big ideas." I almost laughed. "Ideas? You mean like launching a social media campaign with no budget or pushing for a $200,000 office remodel mid-Q4? "He's learning," Mom chimed in. "And he's good with people." He connects with the younger team members. So you gave him the company? I asked. You made the one person who doesn't understand contracts, vendor negotiations, or licensing the CEO? You were burning out, Dad said, as if that justified it. You never took vacations. You were always working late. We thought maybe it was time to give you some space. Let you breathe. You thought stabbing me in the back would help me breathe? I snapped, my voice rising. You didn't relieve me. You replaced me. Landon finally spoke. It wasn't like that, Kel. I didn't ask for this. Dad came to me and said you needed a break and that I could help take things off your plate. I turned to him. And you said yes. You took the title, the office, the authority, and didn't think to ask why your sister, the one who's built that company, was suddenly taking a break without knowing it? He looked down at his plate. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. You didn't just hurt me, I said quietly. You jeopardized everything I built. Our systems, our client trust, our growth. Hawthorne wasn't just a big contract. It was our entry into the luxury build market. You let them walk away. Dad looked visibly uncomfortable now. They'll come back. They won't, I replied. They've already signed with Brenner Group. I checked my words landed like a slap. That's when my dad finally dropped the bravado. What do you want, Kelly? He asked, the tension in his voice barely controlled. We're in a crisis. Do you want to see us fail? I want to be respected, I said. I want to be valued. And clearly that's not possible with Landon as CEO and me working in the shadows. He didn't respond. No one did. So I stood. Enjoy your dinner, I said, reaching for my coat. And good luck with your visionary. As I stepped outside into the cold evening air, I realized this wasn't just about a title. It was about finally standing up for my worth, even if that meant watching everything I helped build fall apart without me. The storm was only beginning. But for once, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. You'd be surprised how loud silence can be. It's not just the absence of sound. It's the echo of everything that's not being said. It was in every text that didn't arrive, every call I didn't make, every email I didn't answer. After that Sunday dinner, I shut it all off. No contact with Morgan and Company. I muted the group chats, turned off work notifications, and let my personal phone sit untouched on the counter for hours at a time. For once, I wasn't racing to respond to someone else's urgency. The strange part? No one came after me. No calls from my dad. No tearful apology from my mother. No surprise visit from Landon. Just silence. For a few days, I didn't know what to do with it. I kept waking at 5:30 a.m. on autopilot, only to realize I didn't have to be anywhere. I'd make coffee, check my inbox, remember there was nothing to check, and sit in the stillness, unsure what the next step should be. By Thursday morning, the unease had shifted into something closer to clarity. I had built Morgan and Company's client network from the ground up, designed systems that saved the company thousands every quarter, and led every major project for the last 6 years. But I'd never documented any of it in detail, because I never planned to leave. My knowledge lived in my head. My relationships were personal. My strategy wasn't written in a playbook. And now, they had the title. I had the leverage. I decided it was time to reclaim my narrative, so I began organizing a portfolio, not to take anything from the company, but to protect what I had contributed. I documented every major client I had brought in, every project I had managed, every system I had created or improved. I contacted Sienna Jacobs, a former colleague turned executive recruiter, and scheduled a lunch. You have no idea how in demand someone with your background is, she said after scanning my resume. You're what they call a unicorn. Technical skills, leadership experience, proven results. Firms would kill to bring you in. I laughed bitterly. That's funny. My own family didn't seem to think so. Sienna didn't sugarcoat it. They probably underestimated you because they think they already know you. That's the curse of family. Familiarity breeds blindness. That line stuck with me. Familiarity breeds blindness. It explained so much. On Friday, things finally started to unravel. It began with a voicemail from Clint Reynolds, one of our top project managers. His voice was tight, like he was trying to sound calm but failing. "Hey, Kelly. Sorry to bother you. Um, Listen, do you happen to remember where you stored the spec documents for the Baxter Hills project? Landon says he can't find them anywhere, and the client's asking for confirmation by 4 p.m. today. No one knows how to respond." I didn't reply. An hour later, another voicemail, this time from Karen, our head accountant. "Hi, Kelly. I know you're away, but we've run into a problem with the budget tracking system. It's not syncing with the new estimates, and Landon told me to call you. He said you'd probably know what to do. Please call me when you can. It's time sensitive." By the afternoon, the silence had broken completely. 6 missed calls, 3 emails, 2 LinkedIn messages. They needed me. But here's the thing. Needing someone isn't the same as valuing them. They didn't value me enough to involve me in a major leadership decision. They didn't value me enough to warn me before pulling the rug out from under me. But now that things were breaking, suddenly I was indispensable again. That evening, I went for a walk through a nearby park, letting the cold wind sting my cheeks. I passed a group of kids playing on a jungle gym, 2 dogs chasing each other in the grass, and a man sitting on a bench sipping hot tea out of a thermos. Life kept moving. Even when yours falls apart, the world doesn't stop. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel behind. I wasn't racing. I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. I was just existing. And that was enough. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine, lit a candle, and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a siren, then silence again. This time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. Then my phone lit up again. "Dad." No voicemail. Just a text. "Call me." "It's urgent." I stared at it for a long time before responding. "What's wrong?" The reply came instantly. "We lost the Wexler contract. $2.3 million. They said they don't trust Landon's leadership." A pause. Then another message. "Please come back." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They were starting to learn the cost of silence. The Wexler account was the second major client to walk in less than 2 weeks. And judging by the urgency in my father's messages, they weren't going quietly. Apparently, the Wexler project team had emailed 5 times about missed deadlines and confusing directives. When no one responded professionally, they escalated to the CEO, Landon, who told them to chill out and trust the process. They didn't. They pulled out. $2.3 million in projected revenue, gone. And suddenly the title of CEO didn't feel so shiny anymore. By Monday morning, I had a dozen missed calls from my father. I didn't answer a single one. I wasn't being petty. I was being intentional. For years, I jumped the moment they needed something. I put out fires I didn't start, fixed mistakes I didn't make, and smoothed over contracts I wasn't even allowed to sign. But this wasn't my fire to extinguish. Let them sweat. Let him lead. That evening, I got a knock at my door. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a split second, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. It was my mother. She stood there holding a Tupperware of her famous baked ziti like this was any other visit, and not a peace offering wrapped in marinara sauce. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly, stepping back like she wasn't sure if I'd slam the door in her face. I didn't. I stepped aside and let her in. The apartment smelled like lavender and clean laundry, the way I liked it. I hadn't cooked in days, mostly just ate leftovers and things that didn't require thought. But somehow the scent of her food triggered memories I didn't expect. Of birthdays, late-night study sessions, family dinners after long work days. She set the dish on the counter. "Your father's struggling," she said gently. "Landon is in over his head. We didn't know how much you did until you weren't there to do it." I leaned against the kitchen island. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, she admitted. It's just the truth. I crossed my arms. So now that everything's falling apart, I'm useful again? She flinched as if the words had stung. We made a mistake. I stayed silent. She continued. Your father thought Landon needed a win. After all his failures, after bouncing around, we thought maybe this would help him grow up. So you handed him my life's work? I said, the anger rising again. You gave him everything I'd earned because you wanted to fix him? It wasn't meant to hurt you, she said quickly. We thought you'd always be there. You were the constant, the one we could rely on. And you exploited that. My mother's shoulders sagged. I don't know how to fix this, Kelly. But we want to. Please come back. I shook my head slowly. I'm not coming back to the same position, the same hierarchy, the same expectations. You made it clear who you value and who you don't. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Then what would make it right? The question hung in the air, and for the first time, I allowed myself to say what I hadn't dared even admit out loud. Control, respect, ownership. Her eyes widened. You want to be CEO? No, I said firmly. I want equity, real power, decision-making authority, and I want Landon out of the driver's seat. That would destroy your father, she whispered. No, I replied. The decision he made is what's destroying him. I'm offering him a way out. She looked at me for a long time before nodding slowly. I'll talk to him. I'm not negotiating, I added. I'm not coming back just to save what's left. If I return, it's on my terms. That night, I emailed my lawyer friend Jasmine Patel and asked her to review the company's bylaws, ownership structure, and the CEO appointment resolution. If they wanted to talk, I was going to be ready. Because I wasn't just reclaiming my position, I was redefining my role entirely. The next day, I got an email from an address I hadn't seen in a while. Westmore Capital Group. One of their managing directors had worked with me on a commercial project 2 years ago. They were looking for a director of strategic operations, 6-figure salary, signing bonus, relocation assistance, and total creative control. Funny how your value skyrockets the moment you stop begging people to recognize it. I didn't say yes, but I didn't delete it either. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from my father. We'd like to meet. No assumptions, no pressure. Just a conversation. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Riverstone Club. It was happening. I was done waiting for them to see me. Now, they were coming to me. And this time, I wasn't showing up as the daughter. I was showing up as the one who had built the empire they were now struggling to hold on to. I arrived at the Riverstone Club 5 minutes early. I wore a navy pantsuit, not the same one I used to wear to Morgan and Company strategy meetings, but a new one. A symbol, a statement. I wasn't coming back to reclaim what I lost. I was here to renegotiate what I was worth. The restaurant was quiet. White tablecloths, muted jazz playing in the background. A place you choose when you're trying to look composed while everything is falling apart. My parents were already seated at a corner table, my father stiff and unreadable, my mother giving me a hopeful but anxious smile. Landon was there too, which surprised me, but not enough to throw me off. Kelly, my dad said with a nod as I approached. No hugs, no warm greetings, just business. I sat down slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Let's get to it. He cleared his throat. First, I want to say, we underestimated your contribution. That's on me. I thought I was making a decision for the long-term health of the company, but I ignored the fact that you were the company's health. I waited. I also assumed you'd never leave, he admitted, his voice quieter now. That you'd push through, keep the ship sailing, and I took advantage of that. For that, I'm sorry. A long pause. It wasn't a full apology, but it was more than I expected. My mother jumped in. We've been discussing options, ways to make this right. But we want to hear from you first. I looked at all three of them, letting the silence stretch. Landon wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I spoke. I'm not coming back to be an employee. I'm not coming back to fix mistakes that someone else made while still being expected to defer to him. I turned to Landon. You wanted to be CEO. You took the title. You accepted the responsibility. And now, you're bleeding clients and calling me for help. He bristled. I didn't ask for this to go the way it did. I just thought... You thought what? I interrupted. That you could skip the years of grinding work and step into the spotlight because Dad handed it to you? That you could manage a multi-million-dollar business without knowing how to read a profit and loss statement? His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew I was right. I took a breath and leaned forward. Here are my terms, I said, placing a typed sheet in front of my father. 35% ownership, executive voting rights, co-CEO structure. Landon handles vision and client-facing work. I handle operations and strategic execution. All major decisions require both signatures. His eyes narrowed. That's a lot. It's what I'm worth. He scanned the paper. This would give you equal control. Exactly, I said. Not more. Not less. Equal. My mother looked between us. What about the staff? The clients? Won't they be confused by the shift in leadership again? I smiled slightly. They're already confused. Right now, clients don't trust the company because the leadership is unstable. You bring me back with clarity and authority, and you don't just stop the bleeding. You rebuild trust. My dad exhaled sharply. And if we say no? I walk, I said. Permanently. I'll go to Westmore Capital. They've already offered me a director role, and they're more than willing to let me bring clients with me, including Anderson and Wexler. My father looked genuinely rattled now. You'd really do that? I'd rather build something from scratch again than continue propping up something that devalues me. Landon finally spoke. What if I step down as CEO? I blinked. He shrugged. Let's be honest, Kelly. I'm in over my head. I thought I could handle it, but I've been treading water since day one. The pressure, the decisions, it's not what I thought it would be. His voice cracked slightly. I don't want to be the reason we lose everything Dad and Mom built. If sharing control with you fixes this, then I'm in. That was the most mature thing I'd ever heard my brother say. My father looked down at the paper again, then up at me. I'll have Harold draft an agreement, he said quietly. I nodded. Good. I want it signed and filed before I step foot back in that office. And your title? He asked. Chief Operating Officer, I replied. But functionally, I'll be calling the shots right next to Landon. There was nothing else to say. We shook hands, not as father and daughter, but as business partners. The official papers were signed 10 days later. 35% equity, shared executive control, a legally binding agreement that ensured no major decision at Morgan & Company could be made without my approval. I didn't return to the company as someone who needed a job. I returned as a woman who had proven her worth by walking away and had the courage to set the terms of her return. For the first time in years, I wasn't operating from exhaustion, guilt, or misplaced loyalty. I was walking back into that building on my own terms, and it felt damn good. The staff's reaction was cautious at first. I couldn't blame them. Rumors had flown during my absence. Some thought I was fired. Others said I'd quit in protest. The truth was murkier, and they could see the shift in me when I walked into the Monday meeting wearing confidence like armor. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I'm not here to undo the past few weeks, I told them. What's done is done, but I am here to rebuild what we lost and take us somewhere better. There was a pause. Then Clint, one of the senior project managers, stood and said, We missed you, Kelly. The room exhaled. So did I. Landon, to his credit, didn't shrink from the transition. He kept his role as co-CEO, but focused on outreach, branding, and creative vision. Things he actually enjoyed. And he got better. He listened. He stopped trying to act like a boss and started acting like a teammate. We weren't best friends, but we were finally aligned. My father? He struggled. Not with my leadership, but with his ego. Watching his daughter command board meetings, renegotiate vendor contracts, and win back the Anderson account was a hard pill to swallow. The same daughter he once told to stay in her lane was now redefining the highway. But eventually, even he came around. 3 weeks after I returned, he stopped by my office. No tie, just khakis and a weathered company polo. "I watched the way you handled the Wexler damage control," he said, nodding toward the glass wall of my office. "You didn't just clean it up, you salvaged the relationship." "Because I knew how they thought," I said simply. "I've been building that trust for years." He nodded again, then looked down. "I should have seen it sooner." I didn't say, "You should have." He already knew. Instead, I said, "You see it now." That's what matters. That night, I stayed late. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I was redesigning our client onboarding strategy and couldn't stop scribbling ideas. At 7:45 p.m., the office lights clicked off one by one as the last of the staff left for the evening. I stood by the window, looking out over the city. Everything looked different now. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine and making it better. And I wasn't just building a company. I was building a life where I no longer had to prove my worth. A life where I was valued, seen, and respected. 2 months later, Morgan & Company secured its biggest contract yet, a $7.2 million commercial development downtown. The client had heard about our leadership transformation and told me directly, "We want to work with whoever's responsible for saving your company from collapse." Funny how things come full circle. And as I walked out of that meeting, contract in hand, I got a text from my mom. "Sunday dinner? Just us. No business talk. I promise." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, we were healing. That evening, as I sat on my balcony, sipping wine and watching the city skyline flicker to life, I reflected on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the silence, the walkout, the reckoning, the rise, the rebirth. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Loyalty means nothing without respect. Family means little without truth. And silence doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it makes you powerful.